Morning, everybody. It's July 5th in 1984, and we have here Dr. Fred W. Benton, the first, and
Grandpa,
Dad?
in other words.
Dad, can you tell me a little bit about what you have here?
Well, in 1954, we made a trip over to Sweden to find out where I came from. And I talked mostly to Gerlin, which that you'll hear mentioned frequently, and we'll tell you where she came from, who investigated and did a lot of the research and loved my father very much. She gave me this book. It's all in tatters almost, but it's a geographic atlas, and her name is up here, Gerlin.
Come right up and take a little picture of it. Do you know how old that book is? Does it have any kind of a date on it?
I'm not sure, but I saw a little side note in this one here, in 1858. She tells me that this was a book that he just loved because he would study this and figure out where he was going to go and travel. So if any of you have the travel instinct like I had, you know where it came from probably, because this atlas probably did a lot to our genes. Or it was part of the environment that brought it out. Now this, there's a lot of maps here.
Well, let me come around behind you and we can take a few pictures of the maps.
All right, well this is important.
Okay.
Of Denmark. Are we still talking?
Coming around, yep.
Yeah. All right, well this says Denmark, and it's spelled, as you notice, this is a real antique, D-A-N-M-A-R-K, which is not Denmark, but it's Danmark, as it was. And here's where my father was born, in Copenhagen, spelled K-O-B-E-N-H-A-V-E-N on the map, but it's now called, of course, C-O-P-E-N-H-A-V-N. And my mother was born right over here in Malmö, M-A-L-M-O, unknown to each other, that close together. And many of the families come from Skåne, which is spelled S-K-A-N-E, umlaut A-N-E here, but it's pronounced like the ship Skåne. And I always thought I was a Swede, but this was all part of Denmark. And my father was born in Copenhagen, as we'll tell you later. All the other maps are you through this one then?
Yeah, sure.
All
there was
the other
one
maps
over there that was really interesting.
This is a map of the United States, and you can see he had a line coming right over here. He wanted to go down to Florida, where I live now and retired to. And over here is the notation of 1858.
Let's see if I can focus up on that. I'm not sure I can, but we'll see.
And you see Boston is underlined there. And New York is underlined, and Long Island is part of the things that he wanted to see.
Here we go.
Have you seen enough of that?
Yep. Okay, well, what have you got there, Dad?
Well, this may be a little boring to everybody, but you have to start somewhere with a family tree. And I'm trying to make it as interesting as I can. As I say, this was all the origins of these was done by Gerlin, who was, well, you'll see later, Gerlin, or Gurley, who was the one of the children of Captain Hansen and my are you doing that?
Yeah, what I need is this...
What?
Okay, will you tell me which picture
All right,
I should do
no, you're not
first?
doing any pictures yet.
Okay.
So, all right, so first of all, I'm going to just come down to Carl Alfred Bengtsson. The last name is spelled B-E-N-G-T-S-S-O-N, Bengtsson. And the favorite nickname of my father and his predecessors was Benky. Okay, now, Carl Alfred Bengtsson came from two people. One was Peter Bengtsson. And when we looked back in his family tree, all we could find was names. It was traced back to 1700, but many of the books were gone and burned when she tried to find them. Peter Bengtsson, who comes from that line, who was my grandfather's father, he died in Gothenburg, or Göteborg as they call it. One was Gerlin that we've been talking about.
Yes.
or girly, and she had no children, unfortunately. Lovely person.
Now, Gerlin is in some of the films that are on one of the other tapes that we've seen, right? We show you and Mom visiting Gerlin in 1954, or approximately in there.
Right. I think you'll see pictures somewhere, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Thelma had 3 children. Axel, that Gerlin that I started with. Second one was Axel, who was in the, and the third one was Thelma. And this is Thelma, the third child, in 1927.
Uh-huh.
Thelma was very highly educated. She had her doctorate in Swedish literature, and he actually wrote books on that subject.
Wow.
And a lovely person. Am I shaking too much? Would you rather have it here?
We can do it like that. Sure. And was Thelma in any of those other films, Dad?
I don't think so. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But now, Axel was and Thelma had no children, although she's married and living in Sweden now.
Mm-hmm.
And Gerlin has passed away, bless her soul. And Axel, I think his middle name was Oscar,
Mm-hmm.
had a married Christine Albertina.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not up to date exactly on how many children they are. I know there's a son, when I went over there, who was very concerned about him getting into medical school, which he did. And he had a doctor friend that helped him. And he got in there and got his degree. And he ended up as an anesthesiologist.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Marie has been over to visit us. And Esther knows her particularly well, my sister, and I've had her at my house in Florida, and she loved my house, and she used to go out in my atrium outside of my master bathroom and call it the greenhouse, and she used to, while we were away at work, she would bathe herself in the sun, and she was a lovely girl, and she is very good in making dresses and so on, and she is a designer in that way and working very good in that direction. But she has a travel instinct, and she's wandering around here, and she brought her sister over here, and I'm not sure what her name is. Her mother was called Little One, Eva, I think, or her sister was. Axel was a great guy. We went over to visit him in '54, and he had a lovely home. He had lovely paintings in them, and he enjoyed art and music, and his wife did. And his business was that of welding.
Huh.
You know, instead of having wooden ships, he was very instrumental in the shipbuilding business and doing welding, the big plates of steel to make the sides of ships and weld it together fast. And he was very successful in that direction. He was a real staunch guy, didn't drink, didn't do a lot of things, which brings me to a very amusing story. I hope you find it amusing. When my father married my mother, and they lived in Everett, some of his old cronies used to show up every now and want to know how Charlie was, see? And of course, before he married my mother, he used to have a few drinks now and then, get high with these guys and raise hell. And when he met my mother, she said, "You can't do that anymore, Charlie." And he didn't have a drink from the time she gave him the orders. And he was very happy, and they, from 30 on. But before that, he used to drink. And these fellows would come around, wanting to have a drink. And, Emma, my mother, wouldn't let him do that. Incidentally, my mother's name is spelled Svenson, Svensson, Emma Louise Swenson. And so they'd come in, they'd have a bottle, as it was in those days, and he'd take them up in the attic and lift a board on the floor in the attic. We had a big attic way up on the 3rd floor, and there was a loose board. He'd open that board and tell them, "Put that down there, and if you want to drink, don't get drunk, but go up and lift this board up and have a sip, but you can't do it in front of the children. That's a bad influence, see?" So anyway, I used to notice when these men came, that they kept going up there. And of course, I was very curious what's going on. And I used to check everybody out. And if they started upstairs, I'd want to go see where they're going. So I'd follow them, and of course they'd want to get rid of me. So unknown to me, these men were very generous with their money. They used to give me quarters and dimes and nickels, and I used to get a lot of extra money from them. And I was so happy when they came, because all I had to do was watch when they went upstairs and collect. I was always there waiting. And they had to pay me or they couldn't get a drink. And I didn't know what they were going for, but I knew they were very generous men going upstairs. Finally, to get back to my story, Axel, I was just telling you that we had visited, the shipbuilding man. He came over at his early stage of life to decide the great decision whether he should move here to America. And he came over and worked on the ship and hard and so on. And he finally came here. He was all worn out from working in a strange land. And he came into Boston, and he was so happy. He was telling me that my mother fed him so well, the good Swedish food, my father, and he was so happy, and they were so good to him. He describes it. But, you know, he never seemed to go upstairs very much. But one day I caught him going upstairs. And I tried to get him to, you know, do what the other men did. Of course, he didn't drink, and he wasn't going up for anything. I think he was going up to the John upstairs. We had one. And I'd stand there, and he'd try to get rid of me, and I'd be very persistent. And he'd say, finally, he said, well, what do you want? And he says, well, how about giving me a nickel? I thought I'd let him up. And so he says he gave me a nickel. And he wasn't too pleasant. I didn't like to see him come. When he came, oh, wow, that's just Axel. I wasn't too happy about him. So later, when we went to see him in 1954, he was very nice to us. And he had a big, big banquet for us. And we all sat down, sat around the table. And I think you've taken pictures.
Yeah, we have a picture.
Yeah. I think I've already told you the story then. And then he gave a story about how we came over, and he knew who Carl and how Emma took care of him, and how Charlie was so nice to him, and he was over there. And he didn't know me very well, but there's this little boy who always says, give me a nickel, give me a nickel. So finally I gave it to him. That's all I know about, and here he is visiting us. So I got up, and I said, well, Axel, we certainly appreciate everything you've done here for us, and we are so happy to be reunited in the family, and to learn what my father was, and Gerland's efforts to give us the history of the family. There's only one thing I'd like to do. What's that, Fred? He said. I says, here's your nickel. Well, I guess I'm getting old repeating these stories, but that's a very interesting
Well, are there some more things in the notebook? It seems like there's a collection of things in there that might be interesting to talk about. Different things from your childhood.
Well, Christina, my grandmother, according to the records of the church, was very clever. I'm reading now what Gerland said, and had the highest marks in records. She also originated from Skåne, pronounced Skåne. It's spelled S-K-O-N-E, and this was also part of Denmark at one time. I think I've got all my little notes that...
Right, well, what about later on in the notebook? You've got some other things. You've got some letters. You've got some other pictures, and all kinds of stuff like that.
Well, let's get after those then. Here we go. These are... Now, you can see when my father had a daughter, he called her Thelma, and that is my sister Thelma.
Wow.
On a settee.
That's on Thelma. And
Thelma,
was this in a
very
park?
good.
Was this
and
in
Thelma was very musical, and she played the violin just beautifully. And my father just loved to have her take care of her. And I think it was a carryover from the Thelma that it was his sister before that took care of him. And she used to sit in his lap and hug him, and he just loved his daughter. And she played the violin, and there were favorite ones. He liked the Old Rugged Cross. She'd sing that for him. But there was another song, Fiddle and I, da 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 da, something like that. She used to sing, and he just loved it. You know. Now this is the best member of the whole family. This is me when I was a little boy. Wasn't I a chic? I was very careful to get my hair all done up. But look at the shoes I had, and I just loved them. They had buckles. You know, you'd just go buckle, buckle, buckle all the way up.
Wow. Where was that picture taken? Do you remember it being taken?
I don't remember it, but I was called a sheik there. Did we already take this picture of my mother and father? I'm not sure.
I don't think we did.
Esther and I had a picture taken of it, and I have the if you want a copy of it, we have the negative that you can get a new one from.
Wow.
Now, my mother was very, very considerate. Are you gonna?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm trying to do it.
This is a letter my mother wrote to me when I was in college. And she wrote this letter, and she said, "Dear Fred, be careful how you live, and do not go too far from God. Keep close to Him, and always pray to Him, our Savior. He will help you so you will get what you need. And do not depend on your own strength. You know we are nothing in ourselves." You want to take
yeah, right. And this was a picture of this.
This is a picture. This is the letter. This is a portion of it.
Yeah.
Then she says, "Too bad the box of cakes was open and the cakes stale. Was it worthwhile sending any questions?" She says after doing that.
And this, when did she send you this?
Well, let's see. This letter was mailed to me on August 28th, 1937, when I lived on Ann Street in East Lansing.
Well, that's great.
And she wrote some other things, but that was an important part of that letter that I liked. And
well, you know, there's one more, after these pictures, there's one more thing that I want, and then that might wrap it up. But do show me the picture.
Well, here's my sister Esther, if you want to see some more reason. Out in the backyard. And this isn't too good a picture of my father with Thelma. And this is another picture of Esther in front of the house.
Well, great. Well, tell me, there's one other song in there, and I think we probably ought to wrap up the film with a song.
All right. Well, my
tell
father,
me a little, yeah.
My father was had a great personality, and he could play a guitar as my mother did, but he liked to get at the piano, and he didn't play it very well, and he'd get up there, oompa, 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 and play different things, and then he liked to sing. Plus, there's no TV in those days, so when you had to entertain, you have to sing. But he had one with Polly Wally. They went to the song of Polly Wally, Doodle All the Day, like Polly Wally, Doodle All the Day. I'm sure you all know that. So he liked one called "I Had But 50 Cents." So I'll sing it for you if you can stand it. I took my gal to a fancy ball. It was a social hop. We waited till the folks went out and the music it did stop. Then to a restaurant we went, the best one on the street. Oh, she said she wasn't hungry, but this is what she ate. Oh, a dozen raw, a plate of slaw, a chicken and a rose, some asparagus and apple sass, and soft-shell crabs on toast, a big box stew and crackers too. Her appetite was immense, and when she called for pie, I thought I'd die, for I had but 50 cents. Oh, she said she wasn't hungry, she didn't care to eat, but I got my money in my clothes, to bet she can't be beat. She took it all so cozy, she was an awful tang. She said she wasn't thirsty, but this is what she drank. Oh.